Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I think it's beginning to seem a little bit springy in Halifax because the snowbanks are kind of melting and it's too hot to wear my thermal socks. I'm so hot today. And the other crazy thing that's going on is the cowlicks. I woke up this morning and they're like all up. And I've got a hairspray that's just one or two squirts and then, magic. I think we were at 10 squirts before, I finally got them to lie down. And I thought, oh, maybe that's a sign of spring. Maybe the crocuses are coming. I have a couple of really cool books for you. But first, I want to talk about Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. Now, I mentioned this briefly last video, and I wasn't loving it. And I was really concerned about the sort of idiomatic voice that was in there and just not sure whether we were making fun, like laughing at the victim kind of thing. I don't know what I think about that one. I haven't adjusted my brain on that particular thing. But the book itself is pretty hilarious. We've got a young girl whose name is Medlin. They call her Medi for short. And she's Indonesian Chinese raised in America. And the four aunties immigrated from Indonesia. And so they speak Mandarin and Indonesian, Chinese, and English to varying degrees of success. And Medi has not accomplished in any real way any of the languages that her aunties speak. So they keep telling her to speak in English because her other languages give them a headache. So that's sort of an underlying theme. Then the four aunties, they're sisters, and they're all very competitive with each other, and they run a wedding business together. And one of the aunties is a performer for weddings, so she does work for other companies. And so she's quite famous in the community. And one is a photographer. No, Medi is the photographer. There's a cake maker. There is a florist. And the fourth one is a chef. So they've got a big event that's happening. And it's across on an island that has been developed into this major resort that's meant for big time parties. And so Medi is supposed to go over there and do the photography, and, just complicated in terms of the actual getting from point A to point B. So that's the underlying part. The main part is that Medi was set up on a blind date by her mom, who had been, that's a spoiler. Let's just say Medi's on a blind date and things don't go as planned. In fact, she kills her date. Or does she? And then maybe she doesn't. And then maybe something else is going on with the body or the not body. And so the body or the human, or that might be alive and might not be alive, depending on different times of the day, is put in a huge food cooler and these ladies are trucking it around the island. It just gets sillier and sillier. The wedding guests are really intense characters. And in amongst all of this, an old, passionate love of Medi's shows up. And so it is really quite an amusing story. It's a love story in a sense. I think they don't have it as romance, which is good because that's not the primary thing. It's just this chaos of a family inside the chaos of a wedding. So I thought I wouldn't like it because of the idiomatic language that was being used, but once I was into the plot and going for it, I just read it flat out. So this is going to be for one of my book clubs, and I think we're going to have a great time talking about it. It's not any kind of literary thing. I don't think we'll be talking about symbolism. We'll mostly be talking about food coolers. So that's kind of a revamp on my point from the last time. It sounded like I wasn't going to like it, but I do like it. And I would recommend it. Okay, don't talk away from the camera, right? no, the mic. Don't turn your head from the mic. That's lesson number 63, the same one, 63 times. All right, the other thing that I want to talk to you, that I mentioned briefly last week, is Sharon McCrumb. And she is a good author. She writes these ballad mysteries, or they're more ballad stories than mysteries, I believe. And I'll tell you why I stopped. There's two reasons I stopped. There's basically, in the flap, it just tells us just pretty much everything. Like, why read the book? The other part is we start off with a presumption that it's okay to be at war with First Nations, and that's like one of the first things that we come off with. And I don't know, maybe they changed their mind, but I just wasn't in the mood for it, and I realized it was not going to be a murder mystery. It's more like a settling, it's more like going through the story of people who are settling out west and taking lands away from people and feeling entitled to that. And then somewhere in amongst all of this, there is a murder. And so it's well written. I'm just not in the mood for it. And I think that probably in the summer, this would be a good author for me to reconsider. So I'm going to put it on my summer to-do pile. I think I'm not in the mood for anything that's really distressing right now. So I think this might not even be a distressing book. It just not captured me in the first 5 pages. And so I'm going to put that aside. But for those of you who are more curious, she is a good author. All right. I read 2 books that I completely... No, I'm going to pause. What I'm currently reading is Equal Rites by Terry Pratchett. This is part of the Granny Weatherwax group. So Granny Weatherwax appears in a number of books, but they are not all necessarily her being the main protagonist. And in this book, she is getting Esk, E-S-K, a young girl of about 9. She's trying to get her from their little village down to the main city where there is the University of Wizards. And Esk shouldn't be a wizard, but at birth, literally minutes after having been born, a wizard shows up with his staff, and the baby's hand is attached to the staff, and we now have a female wizard, which is what the book is partially about, is that why can't women be wizards? Why can't men be witches? So that's part of it. But in Terry Pratchett's world, that's never just what's going on. And so this little girl hasn't got any real sense of how to be focused in her magic. So we get this great moment in a young magical person's life where the magic is doing its own thing. The little kid is not really understanding, but is just naively and blithely going along, and just like the world's just their oyster, and they're just going with it. So it's just a wonderful moment in the development of magic. I'm halfway through, and this is a reread for me, and I think I read it probably one of the first ones I read of Terry Pratchett, so that's several years ago. And I remember the story, but not so much that I'm not enjoying rereading it. So this is probably finished by tomorrow night, and I'm super enjoying it. Okay, the other 2 books I want to talk about are like really top-notch, top-drawer books. In fact, I kind of think they deserve... Where am I at? I'm at about 10 minutes now. I was thinking that maybe I should do like single book reviews, but I'm not really that good at that. I'm more good at overview. I'm not very good at in-depth analysis of a book. You need Steve for that. But he hasn't read either of these books, so we can't have that. The first one I read, and it was recommended to me, again, I come back to Tristan in the Classics, isn't that funny? He talked about the first 10 books that Penguin put out in a series in the old days, and this was one of them, The Painted Veil by W. Somerset Maugham. It's a great cover, and it's a great book. And again, I thought that I had read it, But then I was confused and thought, maybe I saw the movie. And then I thought, as I was approaching the end, I thought, no, that's not the ending I remember. So it's possible that in the world of Hollywood, they changed the ending. But anyhow, I guess maybe what I should do is see if I can get the movie and find out whether that's true or not. But the end, if it's the movie I think of, the ending is definitely different than that of the book. So we start off in England and we move to Hong Kong in the 1920s. And it's a story of Kitty Fane, who is love-starved. And her husband discovers that she's had an adulterous affair. And he's a very quiet, passionate man, but he just does not have a way of communicating to Kitty that he really loves her. He's just so withdrawn and silent. And she needs way more than that. And so she goes after someone who is just really shallow and really, sex-driven, and she confuses that. And so there's that confusion as to what is love and what is lust and what is like and what is tolerance. And so the husband decides that they're going to go up into the mountains of China and replace a missionary because he's a doctor, the husband is a doctor, and there is cholera in this area. And so he's going to work with the cholera patients. She's not supposed to get involved in the cholera, although she's convinced that this environment he has opted into in order to murder her. So I can see it. Not very many people willingly walk into that setting, and this is before vaccinations. And I meant to look up whether there are vaccinations for cholera. Anyhow, so things, of course, are happening in Hong Kong before they leave for the cholera settlement. And then there's the cholera community itself. And there are nuns there whose job was looking after orphans, girls primarily. And so this cholera outbreak has, taken everybody by surprise. And nobody has the skill set to be dealing with it. There isn't a cure, and there isn't really any pain relief along the way. And death is more likely than not. And I'm trying to remember now if they even remember what is the source of cholera. No, I think they're just starting to figure out, the water and the sewer systems and so on are connected to the outbreak of cholera, but I don't think they've got it totally nailed down. I might be wrong, but it didn't crop up specifically in this book. So what's Kitty going to do? She doesn't have any friends. There's nobody there from the English expats, and certainly she doesn't speak any Chinese. She's not really welcome anywhere because she's English, and so she gets into the convent with the nuns and starts to help out. And through all of this, she's dealing emotionally with the affair that she's had. It's been broken off, but it's still there going on in her head. And there's the issue of her husband, and she recognizes she doesn't love him, so what to do? And then there's the whole question of the orphans in the nunnery. I think it's so beautifully written. It really captures the landscape. It really captures the secondary characters, as well as Kitty. I find that her husband, Walter, was really hard to capture because he is so withdrawn and aloof, and kind of scary in that regard. So we have more of an aura about Walter than we do specifics, and it does become kind of creepy. But also, I felt so sorry for him the whole way along. I know a couple of people who are like that, who are like really internal, but they come off as just completely disengaged. And so, I feel compassion for Walter. Mother Superior is really well drawn. The nuns are really, everybody who's a secondary character really shines in this book. It's almost a cast where nobody's secondary character. That's how well each one is drawn. So I think this is a terrific book. I think if you have a book club, I would super, super duper recommend it. Particularly if you've got a group of people who like to delve into, the context around um, a novel that you're reading about, so you could get into 1920s Hong Kong, you could get into the cholera situation, you could get into the expat situation in Hong Kong or China in general. So yeah, I think there's so much to read about in this book, plus all the emotional landscape and so on. Total 5 out of 5 as far as I'm concerned. And I'm trying to think, have I read other? I'm pretty sure I've read other Somerset Maugham books, but they're not going to come into my brain right now. And the second one that I read, which again I think is a complete 5 out of 5, and I think is worthy of an individual book review, but as I say, that's just not my strength, is The Adversary by Michael Crummy. This is a Canadian author, and there's been a couple of sort of challenges. Jolene from my Bookworm Adventure Girl book club, we are reading it for that, but she has another challenge going forward for reading across Canada, and this book meets all kinds of those prompts. It's got a red cover, it's an author with multiple books, can't remember what else, it's Atlantic provinces, it meets that prompt. There was about 3 or 4 that I thought, oh, great, I get to check off a whole bunch of prompts. I haven't really talked about that project, so I won't right now. Anyhow, Adversary is taking place, if you read The Innocents, this book is happening sort of before, during, and after The Innocents. So you don't have to have read The Innocents in order to enjoy this book at all. It's just if you have, that's what the context is around this book. And geographically, it's kind of around the corner. The orphans, the innocents, they are living in a small cove. I think they call it Orphans Cove. And basically, if you go around this great big kind of peninsula thing, you're basically at what was it called? Mockbeggar, I think is the name of the town. And but in terms of walking, like in a straight line, it would just be as long to walk as it would to sail. So they're very isolated here. But in this town, we have multiple families and 2 mercantiles which have the stores and are the owners of the ships that hire the guys to go out and do the fishing and to bring back the cod and dry it on the flakes at the shorefront. And so we get an incredible picture of Newfoundland world. When is this? It's I was going to say it's the 1700s. Oh my goodness. It is in the olden times. There's still sailboats. There's no steamboats to speak of. And so the competition between these 2 mercantiles is what drives this book. Because it turns out, well, let me think if I can figure out how it's a little bit complicated, but a brother and a sister were raised by dad. The girl is older than the boy, has the better brain, completely into the business, but because she's a girl, brother inherits. And so the girl manages to marry a gentleman who has the other mercantile and is also a Quaker, which is really just funny. As a Quaker, I thought that was funny. And she manages to create an empire that's, and so brother and sister through this entire book are just completely at odds. The Adversary title comes out of a piece of like a biblical quote, and that's another name for the devil. And there are so many people in this book who are unpure of heart and intention, and it's just a book full of deviltry, deep cunning, and like implacable hatred. And it's kind of like the Wild West in that at a certain point the justice of the peace is the villain. What else happens? There seems to be no checks and balances on anybody's behavior. Nobody in England or in St. John's, Newfoundland is in the least interested in what's happening in this community. And between the brother and the sister, they've managed to purchase basically the whole shoreline. So every time something goes wrong, everybody in every community is affected. And also a terrible storm comes up. There's things where the ice flows come in and block off the different coves, so supplies can't get in and people can't get out. And oh my goodness, there are so many things that are just wicked. And the two protagonists are, well, they're definitely wicked, but they're the people who are kind of the good guys hardly ever catch a break. So it's a very different kind of a book. It's really a deep look at the dark heart of mankind, and the ineffectualness of the people who are kind-hearted, because a bully just doesn't care. So, why would I recommend this book? Given what I just said. It is so beautifully drawn. The landscape, the nature, the interior community machinations are so well described. The characters are so well described. Even the ones who, like the other book, the people who are the secondary characters are not just flat foils. There's something in them, each of them. Even like the tertiary characters, there's something in them that you really have to pay attention to. I would say I had two quibbles with this book. One was somewhere, let's just say page 170. Let's just sort of approximately. I thought something needs to happen. I mean, we've built to this intensity of ambition and competition, but now we're on this plateau of just watching it, and we are sort of seeing some of the consequences of it, but still we needed something to happen. There is a storm and there is an invasion, but it just returns to itself. So I felt like there needed to be some kind of a catharsis that allowed people to have some kind of awakening or pity. And as a result, I didn't love the ending, because I felt that the main character, Widow Keynes, well, let's just say it. Yeah. That would be a spoiler. So because of this, I had a bit of trouble with the ending. I felt, in the ending, in a book like this, you don't expect hope at the end, but I thought maybe there would be some kind of triumph, and didn't love the ending. It's logical, makes sense, it's satisfactory, but I was hoping for something a little bit different. Still, this is a 5 out of 5, and if this doesn't make, when was it printed? 2023, I think I saw. So I have not gone back to see whether it has won, I don't know whether it's won any kinds of awards or anything. I haven't done that kind of research, but boy howdy, it should. So it is ranked among Crummy's finest, says the Globe and Mail. But yes, did it get it needs a Governor General Award, in my opinion. Okay. I did have something else for you. It's just a little bit funny. This calculator. I bought this calculator back in Toronto when the kids were little from a dollar store. I bet nowadays you'd probably have to pay $2.50 for it, but it still works. And it's solar powered, which is also a miracle. This is my new chunker. I'm going to do 12 pages a night. The Far Pavillions by MMK. I really enjoyed it. I hope I really I hope I really continue to like it. And there are, oh my goodness, there's 950 pages. All right, so 950 pages divided by 12 pages a night is going to take me 79 nights to read. So let's divide that by 30. That's going to take me almost 3 months to read. So we'll see. Now I'm beginning to think, maybe I hope I don't like it, because that just seems crazy. Okay, I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye for now.